For those of you who've been subscribed to my channel for a little while, you may be scratching your heads thinking, whoa, wait a minute, RavenRook. Didn't you already review this game? And to that I say, maybe I did, or maybe I did. Yes, at a prior point in time I have both uploaded a full playthrough and a review of this game, but as I approach a personal milestone, a year of content creation, I started getting nostalgic. So nostalgic in fact that I felt a strong desire to replay the very first game I ever streamed. Strum? On Twitch. And that game is White Day, a Labyrinth named school. As I replayed this absolute gem, I realized some things about the game that made it necessary to amend a couple of statements I made in my initial review, particularly regarding the overall effectiveness of how the devs justify the world of White Day as such, and the punishing nature of the janitors. For those of you who did not see my initial review, White Day is a first-person survival horror game set in a Korean high school that plays very similarly to classic Resident Evil, complete with healing items, single-use save items, and a mountain of reading. And whereas Resident Evil is a bit more realistic with their healing items, I find it much more believable that a combination of ground-up medicinal herbs could have a decent shot at treating lacerations from zombie-inflicted wounds than soy milk could contusions from a bat-wielding janitor. I actually think White Day is the clear winner in terms of suspension of disbelief. The overarching reason for this assertion is that, compared to Resident Evil, White Day's documents are all both relevant to the supernatural events that take place in the game and justifiable things that you would actually find laying around a school building. We have memos, announcements, and ghost stories to collect, and all of them have a rhetorical purpose beyond just overloading us with context and direction regarding Heman Lee's current predicament. Compare that to Resident Evil, where the documents sure do provide useful context and up the stakes, but damn is there an unbelievable amount of people being irresponsible with their diaries and personal correspondences. My understanding of the world of White Day benefited immensely from a second playthrough. One of my main criticisms in my first review was the lack of justification for a protagonist showing up at the school at 10 p.m. But true to form, the justification was there, I just wasn't reading closely enough. In my defense though, there's a lot of information to sift through, so let's take a closer look at a few key pieces of information. In the opening sequence, Heman Lee states, "I was being consumed by the school." If we consider this line in context with the various ghost stories we find, Heman Lee's seemingly nonsensical appearance at the school at such a late hour makes more sense. Due to various fucked up shit that has happened at the site of this school, former concentration camp where human experiments took place, former hospital during a war, far too many suicides, just to name a few. Yeondu High School is a nexus of spiritual animus that exerts its malevolent will in the form of an irresistible siren song over the current students and faculty in a seemingly never-ending cycle. This miasma is amplified due to its being coupled with the negative, angsty emotions typical of teenagers. Finally, at some point, the school's administration made the choice to place wooden element tokens at key points around the school in order to address the paranormal occurrences. This backfired spectacularly. Rather than warding off the spirits this trapped them in, turning Yeondu High School into a, quote, place where the world of the living and the world of the dead overlapped. If we take our protagonist at his word, he may have shown up of his own volition, but some power within the school compels him to enter. So if we can justify his being drawn inside the school, is there a convincing argument for why he shows up at that absurd hour in the first place? The very detail is that, at some point in the school's history, a male student made a legend of himself by sneaking into the school on the eve of a prior White Day and leaving a box of candy for his girlfriend. This story created quite a buzz at the time of its occurrence, and presumably, at the approaching of each subsequent White Day, students would bring up this story. That being the case, it is likely that Heman Lee would have heard this story and would have decided to emulate the protagonist of that story. Given all of the above, the world of White Day, inclusive of our protagonist's motivations and reasons for being where he is when he is sufficiently justified. Moreover, I'm fucking impressed by the level of detail, the lengths the devs went to make sure that everything is airtight for such an outlandish, unfamiliar, by Western standards, setup. Western audiences don't have as much of a fascination with high school as the locus of a horror story. And we certainly don't have multiple rumors and ghost stories floating around the majority of our high schools. In fact, if your high school experience was anything like mine, you couldn't get more terrifying than the real deal. That being the case, developers who choose to localize games like White Day for Western audiences need to consider that when they work out the finer details of the plot. If devs don't heed this warning, the game can fall flat. Western audiences will dismiss the premise or find it cheesy or unconvincing. More to the point, they won't take the game seriously. Clearly, White Day made this extra effort, and I'm 100% in love with the world presented to us as a direct result. My other critique from my initial review involved the janitors, and who better to remind you of how strongly I felt about the janitors than my own damn self. And this brings me to my chief complaint about the game, the janitor. This guy is not scary. He is merely annoying, and his ability to be alerted to your presence and begin pursuit seems way too unforgiving. A door could be closed, and he could be down the hall on the other side of it. You could be crouched and moving stealthily. Doesn't matter. Here he comes, keys a-jingling, running down the hall after you. Neat. Annoying though they may be, I found a new appreciation for the janitors in my second playthrough, partially because I was forced to. You see, on hard mode and higher, the devs do not give you the luxury of an eye icon at the top of the screen that serves as an indicator regarding the janitor's relative proximity, as well as whether or not he has been alerted to your presence. Without the presence of the eye at the top of the screen, I had to rely much more heavily on what I heard in the game to determine whether it was safe to move about the school or not. And that's when it hit me like a sack of Idaho potatoes. Just as I was listening for the janitor was listening for me. You see, I had been approaching the stealth aspect of this game like classic Metal Gear Solid. If I thought I was outside the janitor's cone of vision, I thought I could do whatever the hell I wanted without fear of detection. Even though the game makes explicitly clear that that is not in fact the case, my dumbass still went around like the village idiot crying foul or unfair. And my goodness, it may be buggy in places, but the janitor's AI is pretty fucking sophisticated. Once it finally sunk in, I had a significantly less frustrating time dealing with the janitor. Did I die any less? No, I'm still me. An aspiring Idaho potato doomed to forever be a mere North Dakota potato or some shit. But I knew that my death or close shave was my own damn fault. I felt much more tension, much more apprehension sneaking about. Even if I still don't think the janitor is scary or really serves any meaningful purpose, he's purely an obstacle. There's literally one document that offers a flimsy explanation for why he is a bat-wielding menace. Maybe White Day holds a special place in my heart because it's the first game I streamed. Maybe I'm a sucker for a good school horror game. I don't know. There may be bias informing my estimation of the quality of this game. What I do know, though, is that I am a sucker for Asian ghost stories, and White Day gives you a veritable pantheon of paranormal players to encounter and understand, and I loved every minute of it.